Hey folks, Josh here. Just jumping in at the start to let you know that I've placed some timestamps in the show notes where you're listening to today's episode, just to let you know the approximate times where my guest, Sean Callanan, and I change topics, because we kind of go all over the place from sport to getting hold of ticketing and sporting tickets internationally, which for the travellers among you, that's probably the most interesting part of today's episode. And we also talk about Sean's time getting started in stand-up comedy, which is really interesting, and he took part in this thing called the School of Hard Knock Knocks, which I was a little bit fixated with in the episode because I love that name. I just kept saying it to myself, so apologies in advance for that. And yeah, it's a really cool chat. For everything to do with punching sideways, check out punchingsideways.com. Okay, in case I forgot to say it earlier, my name's Josh Liston. This is Sean Callanan from Sports Geek HQ. And yeah, we go full Sports Geek in this conversation. So I'm here with Sean Callanan from sportsgeekhq.com. And Sean is on the show today to talk about something which is near and dear to my heart, and that's the convergence between the nerdiness of tech culture and pop culture and sports culture, which I know growing up, even in the 80s through to mid-90s, there seemed to be more of a separation in what people liked and how they actually embraced the things they liked than what there is now. So I guess we'll just dive straight in the deep end, Sean, if you're cool with it. What are you seeing out there, and maybe across the span of yourself as a sports fan and tech fan? What are you seeing as the big changes in the way people interact with sport? Because I think it's just pure nerd culture almost these days. So
I have to agree with you. And when I started my business 9 years ago and called it Sports Geek, it was something that I wrestled with a little bit. You know, the geek nerd culture and how it was viewed. And I reckon at 9 years ago it was a little bit of, you know, hang on, why aren't you wearing thick rimmed glasses and in a darkened room all the time? But since then, it's been on sort of two sides of sport overall. You've sort of seen the Moneyball, Billy Bean, if you haven't watched the movie, Oakland A's analytics side of the sports business and how analytics has changed how coaches are going to do it. So there's that side of the analytics and the new Knicks coach saying take that for data. And that kind of thing. So there's that analytics, you know, the Sloan Conference, Daryl Morey in the NBA sort of led the way in that space. So there's that side on the court. And it's not just basketball, it's obviously baseball and all different sports that there's more and more analytics and tech being introduced into the game. And then the side that I work in is off the court. And so where the geeks are starting to rule is the fact that digital is becoming so prevalent in the way we now consume sport. You know, you're harkening back there to the 80s and 90s. You know, if we wanted to follow sport here in Australia in the 80s and 90s, we would have to wait until, you know, the ABC or Channel 10 put it on delay 3 or 4 days later. Whereas now it's all coming to us directly straight into our mobile phones with League Pass, and every league's now got them. So that has really opened up the world, and social and digital media, which is a place that I play in a lot, has helped deepen the connections with fans. So, you know, I think the sports fan world have got a lot to thank for the geeks and the nerds to provide that content, you know, directly to the devices we now use every day.
What you said there makes me think about it must have been the Australian Open 2014 semi-final with Djokovic and Wawrinka, and I started watching it on the television, and then I thought, geez, I really have to just go to bed. I've got to work super early in the morning, but this game's going to be epic. So firstly, I fired up the app in my, laying in bed, and watched it on the first version of the Australian Open app I think they released at that point. It might even have been 7 Sport. And then when my phone started to go a little bit flat, I then clicked open another app and listened to just the audio feed.
Yep.
And I think that game might have went to 10-8 in the... Yep.
It was a massive 5-setter that finished at 1:30 in the morning. Yeah. And that's the crazy thing is, you know, that was 4 years ago that app was launched, and now we've got to the point where Channel 9 has paid $60 million for the TV rights of tennis, but the little asterisk on that $60 million knowing that Channel 7 bid at 35 million, mind you, Channel 9 have got all of the rights. So the TV, the digital, the catch-up rights, all mobile, all social, and they have the ability to on-sell it to different parties. So they can go back to Twitter and say, do you want to buy this match? They can go back to Facebook. And so that's where, the revenue has been increased by digital, but then also that the consumption and how we're going about consuming sport, has changed. There was a lot of misconception of, people would not watch sport on a phone. It's too small. Now, admittedly, our phones have got bigger, but all the stats show that people watch more sport. They're watching it on their mobile, and it hasn't actually detracted from people watching on TV. It's actually got people to watch more TV and watch more live sport. So, digital's been a big part of that in both increasing consumption, but then also increasing revenue for teams.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something we might jump into in a minute, is maybe how individual teams are handling this change in the evolution of the technology. But just to stick with my tennis thing, because not many people, other than people who follow me on Twitter, realise that I am more obsessed with tennis than pretty much nearly anything else in my life. There's a way that certain companies, like I think the Australian Open, to their credit, and this isn't just me being a homer, I think that they're the world leader, in the tennis world at least, in how they've used all the technology to their benefit. And they're not just using it to keep telling the same old tired narratives about 2 or 3 players and their career development and then forgetting about everyone else. Because the beauty of having all the multiple screens is I can watch a couple of the up-and-coming guys while on my phone or iPad or both, and also be watching maybe one of the premier matches on the television. Did you think that we'd be seeing so much dual screen stuff in the sports world so quickly? Because the big thing in Australia always that was scary was, do we have enough bandwidth? But these companies have done so much work on the back end that we're getting like Netflix quality delivery somehow. I mean, you might know more about how that happened. Did you think that side of it would happen as quickly as it has? Because it seems to have come so far.
Yeah, I think if you look at the trends, especially in the US and on, dual screening and, multiple, like, is it, especially for an event like the tennis, it's got so much content crammed into so little time. And so, that's pretty much driven by, and it's not to take anything away from the people at Tennis Australia who do a terrific job. It's pretty much what Channel 7 have been trying to do to maximise their rights, whether that be, what they've done with tennis, what they've done with the Olympics recently and the Commonwealth Games. They realise that the consumer is moving, and TV isn't what it was. Like, again, if we harken back to the 80s and 90s when it was, there's 4 channels, and now we've got multiple channels on the TV, but then we've got some, the rights that can end up on the mobile devices. And so it's sort of the TV networks, by and large, again, globally, are losing audience across the board on all traditional TV. No one's tuning in on a Tuesday night to watch a certain show anymore. We're watching it on catch-up, we're binge watching it. And so the opportunity of live sport is a way for TV broadcasters to better reach consumers. And then the challenge for the Tennis Australias of the world is, well, what's left? Okay, the broadcaster is doing all of the live vision, right? If you want to watch Federer, Nadal, Serena Williams, then you've got to turn into Channel 7. But if you want anything outside of that, that's all up for grabs, and that's what I think Tennis Australia does really well, both in activating the event, but then also telling the story of, well, you can't come to the event. Here's some of the stories around the event that we can share via the different channels. So it's a little bit of working with what the rights allow. And so if the rights don't allow you to, do live matches and lots of coverage and highlights, then, what can you do on those channels? So I think that's a bit that's going to be, as a tennis fan, I think it'll be really interesting to see how Channel 9 handle it from next summer, or when their rights kick in and all the rights that they do have. It's actually going to be really interesting to see if Channel 9 get the rights 1 year early, because Channel 7's channels are going to be bursting at the seams this summer because they've got the rights to the cricket and the tennis. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays and how digital plays a part. But yeah, it's really just a matter of, the bandwidth piece, and it's not a joke, just the fact that we're in Australia and our internet is terrible, but it's also the attention bandwidth of sports fans. You can only watch so much. but how do you make sure that you are, serving up your content to the fans as they need it?
The one thing that I think this technology allows that maybe people of my generation would not have been able to see is the story behind emerging athletes across multiple levels of the sport. Because normally when it comes to broadcast, you're only really ever seeing the cream of the crop of people that have already made it, and it's kind of in the moment. Whereas, to go back to tennis, because it's an easy analogy, you can watch people that have just made the first round through to there's arguably in the men's draw now, still 3 guys that are probably the 3 greatest players ever still playing at once. And you can see all their matches from all around the world through something like the tennis app.
Yep.
With that storytelling element, those young players that may never have made broadcast traditionally, they're the people that are going to be carrying sports in 10 years or however long the sport happens to last for. So it's pretty awesome in that respect.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think that the thing that has changed, 10, 15 years ago, it was always on the broadcaster to tell that story. Whereas now what we're seeing is athletes using their own social and digital channels, they get to tell their own story. So we see some athletes pop up because they're good at content or good at telling a story or have a bit of a personality. And so that's also changed, I guess, the way that, the way entertainment has changed. Someone will be discovered via YouTube or something like that. But the athlete has a little bit more power, and they're not beholden to, I've got to be on the TV channel for people to know me. Things like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and those kind of things can help fans have that direct relationship with the athlete.
Yeah, exactly. So before we move on I wanted to talk to Sean today about his ideas for how you get hold of tickets, because part of what we wanted to talk about on this show was a little bit of travelling to cultural stuff.
Yep.
But we'll wait. And also we're going to talk about a comedy thing that Sean's been involved in, which is why really I wanted him on the show today, because I know that he's always posting funny stuff and saying funny things. So before we get off sport,
yep,
let's just go really granular on the nerdy side of the social stuff.
Yep.
I mean, you would be able to tell me, but is there any company in the world that is as in the moment and leading the charge like the NBA? It's just amazing the amount of quality that they can just have in the moment. Things just happen, and 2 seconds later, there's digital artwork and there's videos.
So I think the global strategy of the NBA. I mean, there was a recent article, a recent interview with Adam Silver, where he sort of talked about, I guess, their digital strategy in broad strokes, and he talked about snacks versus meals, and he sort of saw social and digital as snacks, and he said we want to get those snacks out to fans because those snacks then lead to fans wanting a meal. A meal is watching a full game or attending a game. And so they've taken a real different approach than other leagues around protecting their rights. I still find it funny when I see NBA say, they roll out the copyright cannot be produced, little snippet on the video, because they really don't care. They're quite happy for fans to take the highlights, tweet them out. Vine pretty much only existed for NBA highlights. We've got Instagram accounts like House of Highlights, which is a guy that was just pretty much clipping together the best highlights from the NBA and pushing them out on Instagram. And rather than sending him a cease and desist, he got a job with Bleacher Report. And it's one of the ways that many people find out, get game recaps. And so, the strategy of not playing that whack-a-mole, trying to shut down every account that's sharing your content, which is something that, the NFL and Major League Baseball and some of the European leagues do in trying to say it's our content, it's got to be on our channels, people have to pay, we're putting behind a paywall, that kind of thing. The NBA's gone the other way and said, here's our content, you're the fans, use it how you want. And what they've seen is a tremendous growth. You've got this, the concept and the buzzer that is NBA Twitter, the banter that goes backwards and forwards when the games are on. But it completely just grows the game and introduces the game to so many new people. And it's definitely helped with the global growth. So, I'm a fan of the NBA as a product, but I'm a bigger fan of what they've done in the digital space. And I guess the the permission that they've given their fans, but then also their teams and what they can and can't do with their content. And some of that's, if you want to get into the nerdy tech stuff, some of that is products like the guys at WSC Sports. So I've had the guys at WSC on my podcast change to them about the technology, and their technology is an automated video technology that can detect when cool highlights happen. Right? Wow. They know it can
Seriously?
detect. Yeah, so it detects.
Wow.
So it detects via both stats. So it'll know, Steph Curry hit a 3 and then he hit another 3. But then it also calculates that with what the commentator's doing and the crowd noise to know that the crowd's going bananas at Oracle Arena. And so when that event happens, they go, Steph Curry's hit three threes in 2 minutes. It automatically cuts the video, not just capturing the shot. It does the 5 seconds before, so you see him coming off the curl, and 2 seconds after, so you see him doing some shimmy dance back down the court.
Yeah.
It automatically creates that. And then goes out on social on all the different channels. So the NBA went from producing 300 videos a day across all of their global accounts to 1,500 videos a day, all automated. And so that's why when Dante Exum gets a slam dunk in the playoffs, we see that in Australia because they go, he's Australian, he's got a dunk, that's a great look. We'll make sure the NBA account in Australia shows that. And so taking out people in this case, and setting up these rules has seen their content go, like I said, viral in a sense. And it's real that type of execution is near impossible to do with people. You like to say, cool, let's cut that video, put it up, and then it's coming out like literally you'll at the timeout happens and you'll go down to Twitter and that'll be the highlight you just saw in the game. And so that quick to market, helps. You're just sitting there in awe of of what you watched on the big screen. You obviously just then want to go, that's what I just saw. That's amazing. I want to share it. So tech like that has been, one of the big reasons why getting the content in the hands of the fans as quick as possible.
Yeah, and that almost sounds like that it would be a cure for some of the issues that I have with, for instance, the tennis social.
Yep.
Which will have, I'm a massive fan of Federer, Nadal, all those bigger players, but there's great shots hit at that level by every player in the game, and usually they'll hit at least one a game.
Yep.
And quite often, unless you're watching, you'll never see it.
Yep.
And it's almost it's using the wisdom of the crowd as the indicator, as opposed to one person's editorial decision that let's focus on this.
Completely. And that's what the WSC guys have, that's the secret sauce that they've done. It's a combination of stats, crowd noise, commentator, highlights, all of that kind of thing to get it right. They've started in basketball and football and soccer. And once they've got it right, then it's a matter of who's allowed to post it, so whether it goes on the Australian Open handle or whether it goes on the 7 tennis handle or those kind of things. The fan in the end doesn't really matter. They just want to see the highlight. They want to see, look, there's that between the legs, volley from Nick Kyrgios, and I want to see it immediately. So yeah, it's just a matter of, getting that technology in place and how do you go about doing it? So
just before we move on, that's a really awesome example of something that just blows my mind.
Yeah.
Is that ubiquitous across, is the NBA deploying that as their technology to the clubs, or is it something that the clubs have to take on?
So without at least going into the complete deal, but I'm pretty sure, WSC have done a deal with the NBA, and then the NBA effectively gives the clubs a license. So the reason you're seeing great clips on all of the club accounts, it's because they've got WSC, so they can set up their own rules. And so it all becomes this, algorithm sort of based thing. And so if the Milwaukee Bucks want to make sure that, that certain types of events when Giannis does something ridiculous, they can make sure they can have those rules in place, or they could just have WSC running in the background. So when they want to go get a highlight, all the clips are already done. So there's a few different ways you can go about doing it.
Okay, let's move on to people that are listening who may be interested enough in sport that they want to actually go to a game. And this is something that I'm planning on doing later in the year and also next year. Not just bucket list games, but just trying to get tickets to sport just seems like overseas particularly. Seems like a bit of a
It is a headache.
A bit of a task, and I was hoping someone who's been overseas a lot and has kind of an inside track might be able to tell us, do you have any idea the best ways of getting tickets, lead times, anything that could help people that are interested?
Yeah. So I get hit up a lot because people know that I know a lot of people. So the one way is spend 9 years networking with the sports business world. So
sorry, Sean.
Then you can actually just...
Sorry, Sean, you mean get hit up for free tickets?
Yes, yeah. So I'm connected with a lot of people, so that helps. But that's not obviously a path that everyone can take. One startup that I like that's pretty much been built specifically for this. So it's a startup called Sports Where I Am. So sportswhereiam.com, and it's built primarily for what you just said. So if you're planning to go to, where are you planning to go? Like, give me some places.
Well, yeah, I want to go to the East Coast in North America.
East Coast. So you obviously want to you're going to go to New York and Madison Square Garden. You want to see what's on there, right? So the way Sports Where I Am works. So at the moment, if you were to do that, you would go, I'm going to be in New York this time, and then you'd go to the NBA site, and then you go to the NHL site, then you go to the MLB site, then you'll go to the NFL site, try to figure out what dates are on. And what you might not realize is you could go to New Jersey and there's a game, or you could quickly get in the train down to Philadelphia and there's a game. So where Sports Where I Am is, it's a city-based sports travel business. So you can say, I'm going to New York or Philadelphia or Washington on these dates, and it aggregates and tells you, hey, these are the events, sports events that are on, whether it be, top level, NBA and that kind of stuff, or minor league and those kind of things. And they act as a ticket broker. So you can say, I want to go to these games, and they do all the running around for you to get you a verified ticket. You pay for it in Australian dollars, you get a ticket, and then they also give you a whole bunch of guides around how to get there, what bar's the best bar to go to, that kind of thing. So they're doing terrific stuff in helping, helping people either get tickets to, those bucket list items, whether it be in the US or in the UK. Like they're helping, I was talking to them last week, they're helping someone go to the Champions League final match in Kiev. And again, where do you start to try to find those tickets? And you end up in the murky world of ticket brokers, scalpers, not sure if they're real, not sure if you're going to get ripped off, that kind of place. And that's really hard. So now when someone says, hey, I'm going to go to LA for a week, how do I get tickets to the Lakers or the Clippers or the Kings? I just send them to Sports Where I Am. So it does a really good job. And I think I'll check with you, but I think if you use the code SportsGeek, you can get a discount. But I will I'll check that. But it's just because they're mates of mine that they said, hey, when you're talking to people, at least tell them that you sent them. But that's a really good tool, because the problem you described is the problem that other people have had. And and I've done it in the past, early on, when I've before I started Sports Geek, I would have done I bought fake tickets and tried to get in Madison Square Garden 15 years ago, and I was bought off a scalper and didn't get in. And that's the frustration. Now the technology is getting there. Nathan Hubbard, who's former CEO of Ticketmaster, he's just set up a new business called Rival just in the last week to hopefully really disrupt the ticketing market, where instead of a paper ticket, your face will be identifiable and connected to the ticket. And so if sports teams and also venues start using that technology, they'll be able to see who actually has the ticket and not sell ticket to brokers potentially and push it in the secondary market, because the secondary market's so big in the US. Whereas if they were able to say, hey, Josh, you bought the ticket, and then if you want to sell it to me, you would have to transfer it to me and it would be connected to me, my account, my face. So there's still some disruption happening. It's still really dominated by the big players like Ticketmaster and a few others, and the same as is here. Ticketmaster and Ticketek dominate the market, and so they can say, which version of how do you want your ticket? Either way, it doesn't matter. You're all going to pay $5.40 whether you print it off or have it on your mobile. So that disruption's coming, which is, I think, is a good thing. I think it's going to be better for fans. But at the moment, if you want to go to a game and you're not sure where to start, I'd at least start with Sports Where I Am, because they'll be able to tell you, here's the tickets we've got, here's the different prices, what would you like? And the guys behind it are, good guys that are really just trying to make sure Aussie sports fans can get to the games they want to.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. I've had this conversation with a few people that have gone to the US particularly recently because there's a glut of major sports codes there.
Yep.
And they've said to me, Josh, you could just buy it when you're there. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to travel. Part of why I'm going 15 plus hours across the world is to see sport. It's not an ancillary kind of thing that I'm doing. It's one of the main reasons, and I don't want to be stuck so far away that I can't even see what's going on.
Yeah, and again, that's why the Sports RAM guys exist. So I've done the fly by the seat of my pants type of thing, and I'm in town. Oh, what's on this week? Oh, yeah, I'll go to that game. I went to a national championship game, football at the Rose Bowl when I was in 2010. I just went to check out the tailgating party and stuff like that, just to see what the stadium's like on a big day. It was effectively, the college football grand final with Texas Longhorns and Alabama. And I was walking back to my car to, because I'd seen some ticket scalpers, and it didn't mean enough to me to pay big money to go in. And someone said, hey, there's still tickets available. Go to Will Call. And so I just went to Will Call, bought a ticket, and ended up sitting behind the Texas band and had an absolute blast. And I just bought one at face value. So you can do that. But again, I agree with you. If you're going to go there, and there are going to be places like, how do I get into Madison Square Garden? How do I get into Lambeau Field for Green Bay, or those kind of things. If it's baseball, there's 100 squillion games a year. You can always get in. You can always move around, that kind of thing. But if you want a good experience, I always say go get tickets that are a little bit more expensive. You can always sit in the bleachers. You can go to, I got a ticket and went and sat in the bleachers at Wrigley Field and had a ball at a Cubs game, and it cost it's a $5 ticket. But you can also for $80, $90 sit behind home plate and get access to a suite. I paid $60 once, and I got access to a suite at a Clippers game because someone on a secondary market piece. So you can search around. And luck out. But yeah, if you're going and you want to guarantee I want to go to that game, it's much better to lock in the tickets. But even then, it doesn't go well. I went to a Clippers LeBron game, thinking, cool, I'll finally see LeBron in person, and LeBron and Kyrie and Kevin Love all sat, and it's like, well, what are you going to do? So. But I agree. If that's the reason, if it's part of the reason that you're getting on a plane for 15 hours, you want to have those tickets in your hand before you hop in the plane.
Definitely. And before we move on and talk some comedy with the School of Hard Knock Knocks, which is still one of the great names. Yeah. I just wanted to, what exactly goes on in a suite at an NBA game? You're not going to, I don't think we can let you get away with not telling us about that.
Oh, yeah. So it depends. So I've been lucky enough a couple of times to be in a suite at an NBA game. It's the same. I mean, it's the same as every other suite. If you've been to a super box here in Australia, where it's beers on ice and cocktail food, and you're a long way away from the game. But it's a good experience. I think some of the things that they're doing now in stadiums is changing up that model a little bit. Haven't been to a Dallas Cowboys game, but they've got like bunkers at ground level, and so you effectively can walk out and just stand behind the players. You don't have a great view of the game, but you get to feel closer to the game. I think the Golden State Warriors are doing something similar for their new court, putting some suites like effectively underneath the court, so you're pretty much in the suite, and then you walk out and you're sitting courtside. So it's sort of changing a little bit. But the main thing is just you're in the exclusive club. It's effectively to say, hey, I'm in the nightclub. And at the Clippers that they've actually converted a couple of suites, and so it is a nightclub. So if you don't want to stay in your suite, you can go, to effectively to a nightclub, and you look to your left and there's a basketball game happening, and you look to your right and there's a DJ. So yeah, right. The stadiums are changing a little bit because people don't want to just 16 people sitting there in the suite. They want to up that experience. So that's sort of where stadiums are moving in that high-end space.
It's funny. You just made me think. When it comes to distance from the game, I remember, I'm not sure if it was Bruce McAvaney or Leighton Hewitt, but they got asked offhand, why, when you're so busy, do you come and commentate all these games in this tiny little bunker? And whichever of the two it was said, because it's the greatest view on earth.
Yep.
you can't beat the view of being that close. So I guess with those corporate boxes, they do have to overcome a little bit of the fact that you're not going to have the greatest view in the world with all the extra entertainment, I guess.
Yeah.
Just before we do move on, how far realistically were you from the game? Like, would you prefer to be out of a box and closer to the court?
It just, again, it depends on the court design. So, like, the Palace of Auburn Hills, because it's such an old stadium, all the corporate boxes are sort of up in the third level, whereas the new stadiums now are putting corporate boxes at the second level and sort of making them a little bit closer. Or you've got, I was lucky enough to buy my daughter tickets because she was in New York on Christmas Day, and they've got like a sky bridge above Madison Square Garden. So she was effectively courtside, but above the stadium. And so she was sort of looking down on the court. So like they're doing their best to bring that proximity of those high end seats closer. But whether you get the full suite experience or you're just sitting, courtside next to Jay-Z, some people want that instead.
I think it's important because I'm actually a board member of a Seaball basketball team, which is the next level down from the NBL in Australia, so the second highest quality league.
Yep.
And the starting fives of all those teams are basically all professional players, so they're exceptional. And there's nothing like being at court level with premium athletes or field level or whatever it is. It's just a different experience. You actually understand, I think, as a sports fan, exactly what real athleticism is.
Yeah, and you just don't realise how big they are.
Yeah, well, that too. You just get down to court level and suddenly they all look like trees.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Okay, Sean, let's talk some School of Hard Knock Knocks. Hopefully I've been getting that name right. It's been burned into my head as
No, you have. You've got that right.
Yeah, let's talk. What is it and why did you start it or why are you involved if you are? Yeah, so let's do it.
Yeah, so I'm an alumni. So I did the School of Hard Knock Knocks, which is a 5-day course. You turn up on the Sunday night, and you do a couple of hours, and the goal is 5 days later you're on stage doing 5 minutes of stand-up comedy. So, I pretty much did it for a bit of fun, bit of challenge myself. I'm a professional speaker, so I speak on stage talking about sports and digital and marketing. And so I sort of did it as a professional development piece. And so pretty much, started there. I think I had maybe 2 minutes of really terrible material on the Sunday. And then by the Thursday, I sort of had 5 minutes of sort of okay material that got a few laughs. And so, and then we recently did a School of Hard Knock Knocks best of show. So they did 12 shows at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. So I think it was my fourth gig. So I've done a few gigs since then, but effectively my fourth gig was at the third largest comedy festival in the world. And I did 10 minutes in a packed room that was loud and heaving and laughs. Got some laughs. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. So Ben Horowitz is the teacher. He's the one that came up with the name of School of Hard Knock Knocks, and I agree, it's a great name. And then the guest comedian that came in when I did it was Richard Stubbs. So Stubbsy. And it was just great to get some insights on from him. Like when he saw me the first time, I think it was on the Monday night, he sort of said, "Yep, you can obviously speak. You can do after dinner speaking. You can obviously keynote." But he said, "You're not funny enough. You're not punchy enough. You're not coming up with enough jokes," because I was just telling like a funny story.
Yeah, right.
And so, I guess my main takeaway was, to really, to practice and really look for the funny, as quickly as possible and get to the point. It was fun. It was a blast. Real shot of adrenaline getting off stage after making, a room full of people laugh. Yeah, so it was good fun.
And just for anyone that's listening to this who might be thinking, who is Richard Stubbs and why does his opinion matter? The story is essentially he was the first really high-quality comedian that brought his act to FM radio in Australia.
He's been a comedian for 25 years. He's performed for the Queen and Nelson Mandela and comedy festivals around the world. But yeah, he was a bit of a trailblazer in seeing stand-up comedians on FM radio. Now you can't flick the dial without listening to one. But Stubbsy's been a long-time veteran and real funny bloke.
Yeah, and I think he subscribes to that one good joke every 10 seconds kind of rule.
Yeah, yeah. And it's really hard. It's really hard to do. So, when I was trying to put together material and sort of being time is creates a lot of pressure. And so I didn't try to, copy other comics. I sort of stayed in my wheelhouse. So a lot of my comedy at the moment is about technology and sport and how it works together and where I find humor in it. So in the end, that's worked. I've got a couple of bits that really do well. It's just a matter of, if I get up and do it a couple more times, hopefully I will.
So just before we finish up today, Sean, do you mind telling us, you don't have to give away any of your, obviously, the material you're working on stage, but is there anything particularly funny that you find about the convergence of sport and nerd culture or tech? Is there any particular thing that's been making you laugh about it lately?
Yeah, I haven't checked. What's the rating of your podcast? What can I say and not say?
You can say anything besides the C word, I reckon.
Okay. You're not going to let me talk about Collingwood?
No, that is the C word I was referring to.
Yeah, so I guess one of the things that I've riffed on and joked about a lot of time in doing what I do at Sports Geek is whenever an athlete misbehaves on the internet, and unfortunately it ends up with dick pics end up being published, and I'm the unfortunate guy that gets a call that says, "Can we get this off the internet?" So unfortunately, I've seen far too many than I would like. So I've got a hotline to call up Facebook and Twitter and those likes to say, "Can we get this removed?" So it's that's the glamorous part of Sports Geek, and so I've got a whole bit around how technology is changing and making us lazier, and it's I don't know if it's a good thing. Now we've got Google's got facial recognition, Apple's got facial recognition. It can detect our face to open up our phone, and what I want to do is extend this technology. Is if the face can be used to unlock, what I want is the cock to lock the phone. And so this cock locking technology, I think, will save me a lot of time. It'll save a lot of athletes. And the responses from audience so far is a lot of women think it's a winner because I think it's not just athletes that are sending unsolicited dick pics. So
yeah, right.
I'm developing cock locking technology. Hopefully it'll be in the next version of both Google and Apple phones. And hopefully, the world will be a better place.
Wow. Well, it's going to be an encrypted cock, I guess, on the iOS app. So
yeah.
You've done well there.
There's so many. Unfortunately, there's so many angles. And when I'm saying that, and I'm not talking about the joke, I'm talking about all the dick pics that are out there in the world. So yeah, it's just a matter of how can we shut this thing down.
Righto. Well, that's fantastic. I just got to ask. You said that people think that you have a hotline like you're Batman or something to the powers that be.
Yep.
When D'Angelo Russell did his thing with Nick Young.
Yep.
And exposed that whole story, which has an Australian connection.
Yep.
Did you get a call at any point about?
I didn't get a call for that, but yeah, unfortunately, I have got that call from clubs a few times saying, "Hey, can you get this off the internet?" I'm like, "Well, how about they don't put it on the internet to begin with?"
Yeah, that'd be nice.
So it is a little bit of that, but people could bring me in to say, "Can you come and talk to our athletes and tell them what to do and not to do?" And I just say, "Don't be a dickhead." And it's a really short speech, but unfortunately, I still keep being asked back to talk again because it keeps happening.
Nice. Well, I think that's a good way to finish. I mean, don't be a dickhead. That's a good motto for life, travel, sport, anything social media.
Exactly. It's a free social media policy for anyone, not just athletes.
Yeah, I might sticky note that to the top of my iMac here, I think. Righto, well, Sean Callanan, thank you so much. sportsgeekhq.com. Is there anywhere else that you want people to check you out? I know you're a bit of an Instagram monster. So I like your Instagram work.
I'm not good looking enough to be an Instagram monster.
Yeah, but you just cover all of the everything on there is just super interesting. So.
Yeah, so Sports Geek is my business. You can find me at sportsgeekhq.com. I'm happy to connect with anyone. Like Shaquille O'Neal said to Charles Barkley, other than that, you can just Google me, Chuck. You'll find me at most places on the internet, and I'm pretty approachable most of the time. Nice. And any stand-up? Is that something you're getting out and doing? I probably it's a bit of I should, but I've got a bit of travel coming up, and so I'll be in Dallas for a conference later this year, and so I'm pretty much telling people I'm just going to call up a Dallas comedy club and and do a gig in Dallas. And the good thing about comedy clubs, if you tell them that you're going to bring in 30 people, they'll give you as much time on stage as possible. So I don't know whether I'm a good comedian or a terrific marketer or both. But if I can fill a room, people will come in and laugh. I guess that makes me a comedian.
Yeah, definitely. And for anyone out there from Dallas, Fort Worth, if you just walk into any comedy club and shout, "Where's the guy with the accent?" I'm sure that you'll find him. So,
in America, I could just talk and they just start laughing. I don't have to say anything funny. They just want to hear an Australian accent. So that's easy. I'll just get up there, do a Crocodile Dundee joke, something about Yahoo Serious, and I'll be fine.
Yep, sounds good to me. Okay, mate. Well, thank you, Sean. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Cheers, mate.